In this episode, my guest talks about some of the key questions you can ask yourself to become more strategic with where you put your money in investments. He also talks about the difference between money and mindset. And a lot of people, actually, they're not putting a lot of priority on mindset. And that's where you need to, if you really want to put yourself on the right track. And one of the key things he talks about is the number one mistake most retail investors make. Please welcome Tyson Ray. Tyson, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. So why don't you kick us off and tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes. So the short version of the long story is I had one of those kind of sob stories that mom or dad left mom with 4 kids and an eviction notice on the fridge. I was about 12 to be 13. I lied on the work application because I think the minimum age to work was 14, where I went and started busting tables. And that means I got to have a Friday fish fry for dinner and a Saturday all-you-can-eat shrimp, which was a pretty good gig when you went home and there wasn't a lot of food at home. By the time I was 16, I was being dropped off at the house that I lived in the area that I kind of grew up in was kind of the haves, lake homes, this type of things. And then some of us have-nots that had to kind of service the haves. Well, I was getting a ride home in a Ferrari that I had been out skiing with somebody and I was getting a ride home and I was just enamored by this beautiful car. As I lied at what house I was getting dropped off at, because of course I was embarrassed of mine. I happened to ask the guy, what'd you do? And he's like, I was successful in business, so on and so forth, but I started investing early in my life in stocks and things. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the same time, the high school I was in had the stock market game. This was back to when the stocks were in the paper, right? You opened up the paper and you found the symbol, and then it showed you what it did at the close the day before. It wasn't all this instantaneous stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided I wanted to take my busboy wages and I wanted to go buy a stock that had gone from 12 to 7, symbol INTC. It wasn't inside anything back then. Intel was just an idea of a microchip before it was really in laptops. And the best thing that happened is my mom said, no, right? Can't take a risk. What are you doing? Invest. We can't invest. And I dragged her into an advisor's office and got permission to put $100 a month into 2 mutual funds until I turned 18. And then the rest kind of became history because I wanted out of the lifestyle I was in that didn't come from setting aside extra and trying to make money and then make your money grow. Was what I was told how this gentleman was successful. I was like, all right, I'm doing that. And then I got into financial planning because I realized I had spent a better part of a decade trying to convince my mom to be an investor. That after that, I thought, well, after graduating college, this is what I probably should do for a profession. And here we are.
Nice. How long have you had your firm?
25 years I've been doing this.
Good for you. All right. And you're not located too far from me. As we talked about before the show, you're in Lake Geneva, about an hour away.
Yeah. Yeah. Loving this, loving the beautiful time of the year. The leaves are changing. Awesome.
Seriously, you get this 1 month window where it's beautiful and then the leaves fall and okay, get ready for winter. And our winters, as we talked about, not too bad anymore. It's like the seasons have slightly changed.
Yeah. If you can't handle the winters up here, you're a wimp. Just move on.
There's the spirit.
I can't handle 100-degree temperatures for any long period of time and either. So everybody's got their own weather they have to deal with depending on where they're living.
Of course. All right. Well, let's dive into some of these questions. I was looking on your site, some of your marketing material, and I want to kind of jump into these. So there's one that caught my attention right away. It's called Total Relationship Investing, TRVest. Can you explain what this is?
Yeah. So it's actually a book that we wrote and a philosophy that we have. Total Relationship Investing is a part of that. So the Total Relationship, which was the book that we wrote, is how an individual and an advisor come together to try and understand what's the money for. It's like there's an aspect of investing where you're trying to pick what your investments are. But early in my career, I was meeting with an individual and we're deciding what we're going to invest in. And about 2 years later, out of the blue, they gave me a phone call and they needed better part of half of their portfolio that they told me was the rest of forever. They were going to be there for 20 years before they retired, those types of things. And they bought a car. And the tech bubble had just burst. And so market's down and they need their money. And I realized that in the process of trying to help them invest, listening to what they said, hey, this is my inheritance. I want to invest it for my retirement. Don't want to touch it. But because I didn't take into consideration the total situation they were dealing with and ask questions that had nothing to do with what they were presenting to me, like mileage on a car, when you buy your next car, any home improvements, are you changing your real estate? Like, what are these life financial things? Is the foundation to which you're making these decisions need to be addressed before you make a long-term investment? I didn't know back then to ask. I knew for certain when he took the money out of his account 2 years later, I didn't add value because I didn't know he was buying the car and the markets were down and he bought the car and needed the money. And so the total relationship is kind of a guide to financial advisors about how to help clients think about all the things to be thinking about before the first dollar gets put at risk. In some cases, so that first dollar can be put at risk and they don't panic out. And it's also written for a client to be thinking about what they should be expecting from their advisor beyond necessarily just investment advice, that you really kind of got to lay a foundation first before you get started. In the total relationship, there's 3 parts to it. One is the total relationship plan, this life plan, kind of a lot of things I was just talking about here. The second is the total relationship investing, and that often begins with what should be not invested, what needs to be in cash, what needs to be, where are we at with debts, and what are the interest rates on those things, and before we start talking about long-term investing. Then within the long-term investing is to try and be able to be mindful of, as we need money for something, where is that coming from versus just reacting to things when they show up. And then the total relationship care is how one needs to be caring for paying attention to their plan and their investments, whether you're doing it yourself or in this case for advisors coming in and trying to help people pay attention to the fact of, yes, I understand we want to buy this stock or take this investment. But wait a second. Didn't you say at the end of this year, you're buying that car, or aren't we putting the porch on the house next year, or those types of things, and trying to make sure people don't mentally account incorrectly for what their money is being allocated towards when they have conflicting objectives.
Sure. So are you not only serving, I would say, just people out there who need financial advice, but are you serving other financial advisors? Are you helping them grow their practice?
What I'm trying to, yes, a little bit to both. I have my own practice for the last 25 years, and I have a passion to try and teach other financial advisors to stop selling last week's winning lotto numbers for a fee, I like to say, or stop peddling product, or stop putting all the focus on, let me give me your money and I'm going to go pick some investments better than you can. When there's a whole lot of relational work that needs to be done before you should earn the right to be able to speak into what someone should do as far as taking risks with their money.
Right.
And I'm really just trying to change an industry that has evolved into financial advisors that are still acting like stockbrokers peddling products for firms that want them to sell products, because then it generates money for the firm, and get into more of how do we help make life better for clients? How do we help, my real passion is, how do I help advisors realize your job at times is to basically say, nope, we're going to take money out of that investment and we're going to give it to you because you're going to go on that vacation because that's what you said you wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And now's the time to do it because that stock's up, but you want to keep the stock because it's going up. But no, we're going to take just some of that profit and give you permission to go and enjoy this life. And the more you do that, the bigger impact it is, the more your practice grows, and more freeing it is, because that's what an advisor can control listening to what the client wants and control speaking into, okay, now let's go do it. Instead of getting caught up in just the more money game that we just let it ride and we keep letting it grow. And then at some point we look back and have regrets that we didn't enjoy the life we could have enjoyed if someone would have given us permission to do it.
Right. Circling back to this total relationship investing, this is a cool framework. I like the strategy there of asking a lot of questions, really peeling back the onion. We have a lot of people in our audience that are investing on their own. And as we teach in Ticker, like Ticker's really focus on wealth building. You can manage your own portfolio, but as soon as you start to buy stocks for like 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, 50, it becomes really hard to do, but you can do it yourself. But then you get to a point where you're in more wealth protection mode. And that's when we say, and that's a good point to talk to an advisor. They will help protect the capital you have so you don't lose it. But some of the questions that you're asking your customers, can you ask some of those questions now? I know you kind of touched on it surface level, but this might be good for our individual investors to be asking themselves the same questions.
Yeah, part of it is the scenario that we go through is we often need to think about the end to make the decisions in the present. Meaning, from at an extreme, it's like, hey, is there an obligation you have if the end of your life, whether you died today or died in the future, that you need to make sure you've allocated funds for, and where are those? And so for some people on the younger side or the beginning side, that's life insurance, preferably term insurance. It's debt coverage. It's your earned income you're not going to have if you don't keep making money. So those are some financial planning questions. And maybe instead of allocating an extra couple $100 a month to a stock portfolio, it's allocate a couple $100 a month to term insurance to basically build the protection now. On the reverse end of that, depending on how old you are, it's also speaking into, hey, wait a second, why are we still funding this insurance? You've built this enormous, beautiful pool of wealth that I would say you're now somewhat self-insured. And, you don't have this obligation anymore you have no debts, those types of things. And we keep funding these policies just because, and they're not necessarily the best investments when you don't have the insurance need. And so people just get into a pattern that sometimes our questions help wake them up to, hey, you've now elevated yourself to another level. We can play a different game. We can enjoy some of this. The questions around the family, around your parents, in most cases, it's like, hey, parents fall in one of three categories. They're leaving you something, they're going to break even, or you're going to need to help take care of them. Which is it? And who's in charge? And if you wait till you find out in an emergency, it's a painful process. And it's got all kinds of emotions attached to it, which isn't fun. So flushing some of that out on the front end, right? Then when we get into the specifics of an individual, it's just like, hey, let's talk about debts first and foremost, because that, I can't tell you the number of people that's like, hey, I got this credit card debt, or I got a home equity loan, or I got whatever. And especially where interest rates are at now, okay, I'm sitting on $50,000 of cash and I feel really good about that. I owe $70,000 on a home equity line. My cash pays 5%. My home equity line's 9%. Paid off. Well, but I like my peace of mind in my cash. Well, if you want to recreate it, so it's helping people understand the rates of return where it's growing against you versus what you're making. And people will just have facades sometimes. When it comes to actually the investing, I would like to say the accumulation is kind of the easy part. Put it away, set it, forget it, buy quality, don't overreact to it, don't get too caught up in some of the day trading that takes place, right? Wealth is made slowly over time. Yeah. Most people that gamble lose money, and there's all kinds of opportunities for people to do that. The casino makes all the money in the end, and the odds, it's only like a 3% difference. It's like not a lot, but just a lot over time compounds. Yeah. More so though, it's helping people start realizing, okay, at what point do you have enough? Or at what are you on track to have enough? If you change jobs because you hate what you're doing and you made less because of what you already have allocated, or in some cases I go back and say, hey, if we just keep maxing that 401k, you can make 50 grand. You don't need to make that much more, right? You just got, what is that plan for how much you need to allocate for growth or for your future? But some of it's trying to get these little rascals to actually realize they have enough and retire. I have more people that have wealth because they built it, but then they kept working because they kept feeling they had to. And then they regret it when they no longer have the time because they burned up the time working at the job they hated. Ironically, on the other side, I've seen also, because everybody's different. I've also seen when we sat down with somebody and showed, hey, you could retire today. They kept working, but all of a sudden the things that bothered them when they were in the mindset of they had to work didn't matter anymore when they knew they could say, to hell with it, I could quit. Walk away. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden what used to bother them and they'd take it home and be all upset about it, be like, I can quit tomorrow if I wanted to, but I'm gonna go back in because I don't care anymore because I don't have to do it. I found different reasons why I like stuff. And it's just amazing how psychologically we're wired that we set what we like and don't like often. And if we can shift that paradigm around by understanding how they financially have their makeup and what their foundation looks like and having that relationship, helping them see, you can do some of this yourself, just having honest conversations with it. Actually, the saying is, you need to stop listening to yourself and start talking to yourself more, because you'll stop yourself. If you're listening to yourself, you're spinning yourself in often a negative feedback loop or a positive feedback loop. And often you pretty quickly get away from a reality of what's really true. If you talk to yourself and ask yourself questions, is this true? Is this not true? How do I really feel about this? Even better, if you bring somebody else in that conversation, you will make better decisions. And part of the total relationship is asking yourself questions and trying to understand, what is your relationship to money, to your life, to the things you want. Do you want more money? Do you want a better life? Do you want to work harder, or do you want to be home more? And just being honest with those things and comparing them to the reality of your life and trying to make sure they match.
Right. This podcast episode is sponsored by Ticker. Ticker is a platform that helps you manage your own investments with confidence. Check this out. Let's search for Apple. You can see Apple is on sale. That's looking good. Score is 61 out of 100 and margin of safety is 75%. Higher the score, the safer the investment, and the higher the margin of safety, the higher potential returns you can make. In this case, you can see the share price is $175 as of the recording of this video, and the upside potential, the fair value, is $398. All right, let's look at a different stock. We'll go to GameStop. In this case, GameStop is overpriced. Scores 39 out of 100. That's not looking too good. And the margin of safety is 0%. Here are some other features within. You can create your own custom dashboard. I like to set up and take a look at the top gainers and losers in the last 24 hours. I also like to take a look at the top search stocks, but you can really customize the dashboard to whatever you want. We have stocks, ETFs, crypto. This is a big one. We have a watch list tool that allows you to add stocks to the watch list. And if anything changes, such as that score or margin of safety, you automatically get notified. I call it the set it and forget it feature. And then we have portfolio trackers and alerts. So if you're looking for strong stocks, want to avoid bad stocks, and learn how to invest, I invite you to join Ticker for free. You touched on a hot topic here. This is a question.
Yes, hot topics. Let's go.
Indeed. I get customers from our audience asking me, and we're not an advisory service. We're just a screener, and we've got customers all over the world that use our tool to find out, like, is this stock good or is this stock bad or whatever? And then they learn how to invest along the way. But there are people that I ask me, like, I'm not sure if I can retire. I feel like I have enough, but I'm not quite sure. And it touched on what something you just said which is people have arrived, but they're not mentally shifting the gear to realize that you can actually be financially free, retired. I feel like it's not so much a money situation, it's a mindset situation. Can you talk to that a little bit?
You know, I don't mean to laugh, but it's just that I found people, like, when the light goes on, it's just like, I'm the problem. Like, it's me, right? It's the way I'm seeing things. So for 25 years, if we had a niche, or if we had our ideal situation, is we literally come in at some point within 5 to 10 years of their retirement and help plan for that transition in life, where all of a sudden it's like the flow goes in the other direction. You've been saving your whole life, you've been building this wealth, and all of a sudden now you need the money. And I just had a month ago, an airline pilot being forced into retirement at 65, and he's beside himself about how's this going to work. And he didn't like, people hear what they want to hear when they're ready to hear it. Mm-hmm. And so I went to him and I just because I had been trying to say it to him, but he hadn't been ready to emotionally connect to the reality of it. And now he is. And it was just like, wait a minute. And our value add is, we're going to take your portfolio. It's our job then to discern what's coming from dividends, what's coming from this, to turn around and create the paycheck that we're now going to send you on the 1st or the 15th every month back into your bank account. So then you have what was your net money you got every month? Okay, so we're going to go put that $7,500 every month back in your bank account, and you're going to go retire just like you were. And we're going to try and help manage and steward the wealth, and now pay attention to what used to be, when the market went down, you wanted to add, is the exact opposite of what you want to do in retirement. In retirement, you don't want to ever dollar cost average out. What you want to do is look at what is the upper trend. And when you're at the upper trend, create 12 to 24 month cash reserves to therefore never have to sell in a downturn. But helping people realize that you reach a point that, yes, you can. There are different studies that are out there. It has gone down, although interest rates have gone back up. That's probably 4 or 5%. 5% is just an easier number. So for every $1 million, you can take about 50 grand out. If your desire is to try and leave the future value of inflation of $1 million in the future, it's like, you want to take the fruit off the tree, let the tree still grow, not kill the tree, and still retire. You can take about a 5% annual distribution out of an account. Some insurance companies will even insure that, because that's how most likely it's going to happen. You can screw that up by doing it every month. But if you, on an annualized basis, take out like an RMD from an IRA that never runs out of money, and that increases beyond 5%, we use that as a rough guide for people. It's like, okay, how many million, if it's 50 grand to pop, how many millions do you need to basically retire? Then they have to do the math of realizing you're not saving in a 401k. Your taxes are probably going down. If your debts are all paid, the kids are all off the financial umbilical cord. It's not what you're often making. That's a psychological battle.
Yep.
People they feel like they got to replace their earnings. It's like, no, you needed the earnings to build the wealth. And then it's how, I have some clients that live happily ever after with 500 grand and are just delightful. I have some people that have 5 million and they're miserable. And it's just, okay, because of needs and wants and what they have, and things cost more, and more doesn't necessarily mean happy. It just means more.
That's our society.
Oh, yeah. And we call it funded contentment. The people that can get to the point that can enjoy the life that they have without having to compare it to somebody else's life. It's just literally what you always wanted. And you can find yourself contented in that, and you have the funds to pay for it, are just amazing people. And then we just help them not screw it up.
Right.
Because life is being thrown at us every day, every second with technology about why the world's ending or why this is changing. My comeback for that, or what I would tell your listeners, is let's not forget that sometime last year, the world birthed its 8th billionth person. So 8 billion people on the planet. Mm-hmm. They all wake up every day and like to have a better life. That simple. Whether that's clean water, food, clothes, house, car, kid, education, Coca-Cola, hamburger, cheeseburger, whatever. It's like, and then entrepreneurs, businesses can create products and services to give to these people to make their life better. They won't do that unless they can create a profit to themselves, to the shareholders, greater than their cost of debt. Otherwise, they won't stay in business very long. And then in the capitalistic society, which isn't going away anytime soon, it has inefficiencies, and sometimes government screwed up and people screwed up, but whatever. You can participate in that. Oh my gosh. And the history of that, it's life-changing for those that want to participate in it. But 8 billion people get to decide what something's worth on any given day. And they do that very incorrectly with a lot of passion and emotion in both directions. And you get the opportunity to click your mouse and liquidate your life savings because of how you feel. And sometimes how you feel is the last thing you should be acting on. But outside of that, it's a great game.
Before we, and just to take a step back here, this is great information here. And what I want to do is transition to the rapid fire round next. But one last question before we get there is, what is a common mistake you're seeing with people that are trying to manage their own investments?
The common mistake, it is an either or, all or nothing mindset. Either they have everything in stocks, or worse, they have everything in one, or they have everything conservative. Right. So then they're not participating in stocks, or they go back and forth between having everything in stocks and then panicking out and having everything back in. And one of the things that Total Relationship talks about, and one of the things that I think people, if you break your financial decisions up in, have 3 to 6 months in cash in your checking account, have 6 to 12 to 24 months of a cash reserve for emergencies or whatever major purchases you're going to have in the next 12 to 24 months that you don't want to finance at rates of return probably north of 5%. Then after that, it's like maximize your tax savings, or maximize, I said differently, how much money you can get matched, because most people have access to a 401k, and that 401k often has a dollar put on top of the dollar. Get every one of those dollars you can get, right? But and then after that, so it's like break your finances up to feel like you have a foundation to work off of, instead of the all or nothing. Either or is a mistake that just damages people by making all or nothing decisions. And so they either get in and out at the wrong time or never participate, or participate too much and then sell at the wrong time.
Right. Great advice. Love it. All right, let's jump into the rapid fire round. This is the part of the episode where we get to find out who Tyson really is. If you can, try to answer each question in 15 seconds or less.
Who am I?
You ready?
Is there a timer?
No.
Perfect.
I honestly, I don't hold these times too strict. So let's do this. All right. What is your favorite podcast?
All right. 15 seconds or less. Yeah.
Favorite podcast?
My favorite podcast is, I want to say it's Unbelievable. It's a news podcast.
Okay. What is a recent book you read and would recommend?
Humility was the name of the book.
Okay. Who's it by?
I'm
looking it up as we speak.
It up. Hold on. We're looking it up. I should pull up like my Amazon. I love the book. C.J. Mahaney.
Okay. I have it saved.
There it is.
Give me, we're going to go beyond 15 seconds here. Give me a good 30-second pitch. What's this book on? Aside from the topic humility, what does it really dive into?
It dives into the fact that basically we are constantly on an ongoing basis, completely oblivious to our own pride and how that works against us. And when we can flip our mindset over to humility and caring for others, we'll live a better life.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, I'm sold.
It's a humdinger. Like, I got to go back and reread it because it was good.
Seriously, yeah, you caught my attention there.
That line that I said is stop listening to yourself and start talking to yourself came out of that book.
Awesome. Okay, next up here, this is a fun one. What is your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, I think, actually, and this may be a little cheesy, but the first thing that came to mind was the original first Top Gun. Oh man, I wanted to be Tom Cruise.
You prefer the first one over Maverick?
No, I'm saying the second one was awesome.
Yeah.
That was probably the only time that they actually almost created one as good as the first, but I was little and it was like, it was the theater back when that's the only place you saw a movie, like the walls shook.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first thing that came to mind.
Okay. All right. Good choice. All right. Next up, what is the worst advice you ever received?
The worst advice I ever received was not to use. It probably turned out fine, but the worst advice I ever received, and it was well-intended, was not to use my college AP credits that I had for science, because I went to college to be a chemist. And I was encouraged to take those classes, the basics, over again, because I'd be like getting straight A's, because like, you're going to crush it. Well, the problem was I was bored, so I never went to class, and all I did was show up to the final and barely passed off of my memory from 3 years earlier of freshman high school, Chem 1. And Monday, Wednesday, Friday in college was at 8 o'clock in the morning. So who goes to that? Mm-hmm. So, but at the end of the day, I didn't go into, I have done very well for not being a chemist.
Right on. All right. Flip that equation. What is the best advice you ever received?
Don't try and make money borrowing money. So the whole leverage and margin and that's where you can blow yourself up.
Yeah, agreed. All right. And last question here is a time machine question. If you could go back in time to give your younger self advice, what age would you visit and what would you say?
I think you could go almost back to any age. What I would say is, man, just enjoy today. You got time.
Right on.
That's probably going to be used against me because someone right over here is listening to that, and I'm going to get off this podcast. Just enjoy today. It's all you got.
Love it. All right, Tyson, where can people reach you?
Yeah, I think the best way to reach out to me is LinkedIn. We have access there as far as the information on the book from exploring becoming a client, or if you're ready to try and find out if maybe having a relationship with a financial advisor makes sense. You can reach out at formwealth.com is the website.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
All right. See ya.